So now we'll talk about. So the next section, what I call as life cycle of a ticket, right? How does the ticket booking process actually happen at GoMT group, right? What might look very simple and trivial from the surface actually has a lot of moving components, right? Moving parts behind the scenes. So let's walk through them. So the first slide, right? The first slide talks about, obviously you let's say you want to do a flight ticket, you want to book a flight ticket. What do? You end up on the flights page, right? So we have MakeMyTrip.com/flights, right, on the website, or on the app. You basically you come to the app, right, and then you basically tap on the flights button, right? You end up on the flights, what we call as the flights landing page, right? The first page where you have the search widget, right? In the search widget, what do you see? You see a origin. You have the option to basically put in an origin, a destination, a fare class, right? Number of passengers, right? And then basically you hit on search, right? Even the simplest of thing like this, right? For example, there are just so many cities, right? We offer both domestic flights as well as international flights. There's so many cities, right? Every city has an airport code, right? So let me just quickly show it to you as well, in case, just to refresh your memory, right? So if I come here, so this is the page I'm talking about, right? Even the simplest of things, right? From, and you have just so many cities going on. Like, how do you get a list of these cities? Like, how would MakeMyTrip know, right? We are not a, we are an internet company, right? We are not an airline company, right? How do we get these list of airports? And these list of airports continuously keep evolving, right? Like new airports keep getting added, right? Or something or the other is happening, right? How do we get it? Like, so that's the first question I want you guys to basically talk. So how do we get origin and destination? How do we get the list of cities and airport codes? Every city then has an airport code that you need to know. So while this is not happening, like the user does not have to input the airport code, but this is how the search actually works behind the scenes. You have to pass the airport code to actually know for a particular sector whether there are flights available or not. So how do we get the airport codes? And then we do some interesting stuff like fare calendar, right? So for example, if I just put something, right, New York to Delhi, right, and I click on the date widget, we are able to show fares, lowest fares for each of those individual dates, right? This we call as the fare calendar. Like, how do we build dynamic views like this? Like, what do you guys think? Like, how does something like this work? Would like to hear your opinions, thoughts on how even the simplest of things like these work.
Yeah, so you would probably, this is my guess, that you would probably have an API or like system working on the fly, like company ends of, say, let's say Qatar Airways and so on and so forth. And then partnerships, whoever you have with, and then you would collate that into one database. And then you would have a function running as to select the minimum price on a date and correlate it with a calendar as to setting. And for the airport codes, similarly, I do not think you do not have to even know the airports. Rather than that, you can just suppose Etihad Airways can give you the airport codes its flights are going to, and you can just collate. And as and when bookings are happening, you can employ a, let's say, a recommendation pattern wherein the higher number of bookings, it climbs up the charts. So let's say I am in Calcutta, so CCU, if I book a lot from CCU or my cookies suggest, then it will go higher up the charts. That is how.
Awesome. I think Chirantan, you are pretty close. Obviously, there are a lot more. There's a lot more happening, but I think that's a fairly good answer. Anyone else who wants to take a stab at it? But it's a very good comprehensive answer. I think it broadly covers most of the contours of the answer. But I would like, obviously there's a lot more happening behind the scenes, but would like to have someone else take a stab at it. Please, one of the ladies has to volunteer this time. Like, someone should come and volunteer. Isha, please force someone to basically volunteer from the women's group. I'm not seeing a lot of participation from the women's group.
Someone, but I believe somebody can unmute themselves and take a guess. There's no right or wrong. So
don't be scared, guys. This is just like free information sharing. The reason I'm asking you to sort of take a stab at it is just to like understand like how do you like visualize something like this, and hopefully I will be able to answer your queries better.
Richard, do you want to take a guess?
Okay. I am thinking that for the for the airport codes, you might be speaking to the companies or statutory body of aviation sector so that they keep on, there is some partnership with the government bodies as well, or these companies who basically are participants of making new airports. And that will be the direct and most, shortest way of finding out and getting data about the airports. And I sort of agree with Chitrantan about the calendar thing as well. So you have the partnerships with these all these airline companies. So you are constantly in contact with them about the lowest price. And also, I don't know whether this is involved, but maybe there is a little bit of prediction involved as well, because in the coming, we can see like 5-6 months also, we can see what are the coming rates.
Correct.
And so basically we are sort of modeling it into a way that it gives the users an idea about what the prices are going to be later. And then again, we have a lot of offers and plans with MakeMyTrip as well, of pay now and book later.
I forgot to add, like when with Richa what says, it came to my mind. So you would also maybe have a way of analyzing prices at competitors and trying to set your margins accordingly. Otherwise, you cannot have a fixed margin. Like let's say 5,000 rupees only. Like it's not like that. So you have to dynamically change that. And that would primarily depend on what is the going rate in the market, because obviously you're getting the tickets, like the seats, at a much lower price, and you are setting a price on top of that. That is my guess.
Got it. Awesome answers. I think I really loved both the answers, Chirantan, Richa. Thank you so much for volunteering. So abhi ke liye will not get into, so I'll not get into the pricing discussion right away. Let's just talk about how the information flows. We'll get into a pricing discussion later. Otherwise, we'll just, I don't want to address that part just now. I'll address it at later stage, but let's first walk through how the information comes, right? So let's see how it happens. So what happens? So obviously you have the website or the app, right? So mt.com, MakeMyTrip.com, or MakeMyTrip app, right? And abhi ke liye, I'm just telling you that, okay, there is a black box called what we call as the MakeMyTrip flight engine. Okay. And what happens is, anytime any web, be it our mobile website or desktop website or our Android app or our iOS app or any app we might write in the future or any website we might launch in the future, all of them have to talk to our central MakeMyTrip flight engine, right? Which will pass on all the different information, right? And in sort of internet terms, this is your client and this is your backend, right? What we call as the backend, right? Which is the engine that basically passes all the information. So what happens? It says, give me airport codes, and flight engine says, sure, here they are. And the client does not need to know, the app or the website does not need to know that how is the flight engine getting it. All they know is, okay, the flight engine is responding back with some information, right? And they are basically showing it on the UI, right? So the whosoever is developing the website or the app, they are like, okay, the flight engine is giving me the airport code. I don't care how the flight engine is getting the airport code, from where they are getting the airport code, I don't know, but they're definitely returning me the airport code. So I will build my UI on top of it the way I want to and basically present it to the user, right? And the way it works is very similar, right? So like you have different URLs for the websites. There would be a URL like MakeMyTrip.com/airport codes, which does not return a website, but actually returns to data, which we call as an API, right? Which what Chirantan was referring to. So an API is nothing but a URL that actually, instead of returning you a full-blown website, it actually returns you raw data. And then you use that raw data to build your screen. So I'll just quickly do a small demo, very simple demo, right? So let's see how the airport codes come in, right? So this is my browser. You can see my browser right now, right? Can you? Anyone?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So now in the browser, we have something like, you don't have to worry about what I have launched just now, but basically there's something called developer tools, right? So you're able to see what kind of requests are going out and coming in, right? So and in the developer view, I'm on the network tab. So as you know, network is basically something like anything that is going over the internet and coming back, it will get recorded here, right? So I already have the website open, right? And So obviously something is happening, but that's fine. We can ignore it. So now if I go to this origin selector, right? If I select something here, right? Automatically you see some things are going via the internet, right? And if I look, if I just open this one up, or a better way to show this would be, uh, oh, what's
Copy
this?
link address.
Yeah, copy link address. Yes. So if I show you, this link is actually this. This is like any other URL. But what is happening is when I hit on it, it will actually return you instead of a website, it is returning you data. And if I just like, obviously this data is hard to read, but if I just put it in something, so let me just quickly see if I can. I think this one will be better. So you saw that it returned me some data. I've just put that data here. I'm just hitting on process. And now it is much more structured with much nicer formatting. So you can see, right? So it is returning me an icon. It is returning me the city, obviously the airport city, the airport country, the IATA code, which is the airport code for that airport, which is BOM, the full airport name, and then whatever CC is something else, and then obviously the icon, right? So because it's a flight thing, it's showing a flight icon, which is what is this one? This flight icon, right? Even the flight icon is coming from this, right? My flight engine, right? Only then you will be able to show the flight icon, right? So that is how this works, right? So there is a flight engine. So all my clients basically talk to my flight engine, get all this information back, and all of this information is being returned by what I call as what Jonathan rightly called as an API. So API is nothing but a URL that basically, instead of giving you the full sort of website, it gives you data. So far, so good, clear? So that is how we are like showing some of this information. Is this clear? Not clear? Okay, so I'll just move on. And just sort of adding a little more color. So, and how the flight engine is getting the airport code, it could be something that we would have configured internally also, right? So one option is like we get a list of, so we periodically look at the list of airport codes, right? So let's say every 3 months we look at the list of airport codes. And if we find that, okay, something new has gotten added, we might be getting that even in an Excel dump, right? And we get that Excel dump and put it into our upload it into our empty flight engine, and empty flight engine is able to respond. Like a very simple way of doing it could even be that, or you could be getting it dynamically from some other system. The empty flight engine might be getting it from some other system, like some of you pointed out that there might be partnerships with some other companies or some other agencies, right? Who might be like, we might be integrated directly with a technical connection with those guys, and they might be responding with airport codes to us real time, right? So both options are there. What we do, we'll get to that, but this is how this thing works. Does this help? Is this clear so far? Because this little bit is little more tricky to understand, important to understand. Just want to make sure that you guys have understood. Any yes no answer would help.
Yes, it's clear.
Yes. Yeah, it's clear.
Cool. Only Chirantan is participating. What happened to the rest of the guys? Guys, come on. I also put in a lot of effort to actually put all of this information together. So I want a little more enthusiastic participation. Would really help. Yeah, even a simple yes no helps me. Anyone else?
It's clear, Anurag.
Yes,
Yeah.
Anurag, it's clear.
Okay. So moving on. So yeah, so let's talk about the second slide. So now once you put in the information in the search widget, right? We call it the search widget. You're putting in all the different information, and now you're getting all the different flight options, right? So you obviously put in your origin, your destination, your dates, your fare classes, and after that, what you see is what we call as the search results page, right? Or the listing page, right? So now if I get here, I'm closing this. I'm putting anything. So New York to Delhi. I have a lot of money, so I'll travel to US. and just put some date. I have specifically taken the international example. Now you have so many different airlines, right? So you have American, you have Kuwait, you have Etihad, you have Air India, right? So many different airlines. You have British Airways. Like, how do you think we get all of this information, all the different airline options, right? You have United, Air Canada, right? There's just so many different airlines in the world again, right? Especially when you look at international flight options. So how would someone like MakeMyTrip, a company like MakeMyTrip, get information from so many different airlines? Like, what do you guys think?
So just to get here, so these companies might be having their APIs wherein you send the specific query details like what is the to and from and what is the date and type of the passenger, and
Correct,
accordingly
correct.
we'll be
So,
getting the
yes, Dheeraj, perfect. Okay, so I'll just hold you there. Perfect. Anyone else who wants to take a stab at this?
What is your, like, can you repeat the question once?
So my question was, like, you have so many different airlines, right? Like,
Yeah.
if for a particular sector, New York to New Delhi, you have like probably like you have like 20 different airlines, 25 different airlines, and obviously there are so many different sectors, right, which are served by many different airlines. So in the entire world, there might be, I don't know, I'm just making it up, 1,000+ airlines or 1,500, 2,000 airlines. How is it that MakeMyTrip is able to get information about all of these different airlines, which are on all of these are on different systems, right? So how does MakeMyTrip connect with so many different systems and are able to show all of this information in one central place?
So, like, let's say, for example, if American Airlines uses a Python-based system, even then, like, they would have the APIs so to interface with yours, right? So,
Right.
irrespective of legacy systems or any other system anyone has employed, it doesn't really matter because API will work as an abstraction engine, basically.
Correct. You are absolutely correct. But that means that I have to go and physically integrate with 2,000 different systems.
Okay, I understand.
Right.
Yeah. So just
And that's not trivial, right? That's not a trivial thing. If I have to go and integrate with 2,000 different airlines, I'll be dead, right? I will not be able to make a business out of this.
True.
hello.
Sai,
Yeah, am I audible?
yes,
Yeah.
Yeah. So just to think from other perspective, I think MakeMyTrip directly connects with the like any country or any location or any central system from where we can, let's say if it is New York, maybe any entity directly we talk to from New York and then get all the flight details, the different airlines they are
there must be
operating.
some data aggregator in the middle.
Awesome.
Some
Perfect.
central system.
Perfect. So yes. So that is what I was getting to. So there is an aggregator in travel world also, which is called a global distribution system. It is called a GDS, right? And I'll just add a little bit nuance also, right? So the real thing that is happening is, you saw the earlier picture, the MakeMyTrip flight engine itself does not have any information, right? We are not an airlines company. So the way they are getting this information is through an aggregator, which is called a global distribution system. It's like a standard acronym terminology in travel world, right? So GDS is basically someone who aggregates all the flight information. If you go look at the history of GDS, the first GDSs in travel industry, they started way back, right? Because ultimately the airline companies also wanted to offer an easy way to their end customer to book tickets, or even to the travel agents to book tickets, right? So for the first phase was computerized reservation systems, and the second phase was building an aggregator on top of it. So the first set of GDSs were actually launched by the airline companies themselves. They basically pulled together as a consortium and they basically launched a GDS. So we also get information from GDS, and GDS stands for Global Distribution System. And and exactly what Chirantan called out, GDS, what are GDS? GDS is basically aggregators of all the travel supply. Who created GDS, which I already called out? Basically, the airline companies themselves came together and built GDSs simply because they had to reach their final audience, right? Otherwise, it is very suboptimal that, okay, a travel agent with a dedicated Linux terminal is sitting somewhere, right? And then he has to access the terminal, which means he has to put in a lot of investment, a capex investment to basically build something like this. And then booking can only happen over a phone call, right? Because end customer will never be able to access, right? So the airline companies themselves sort of built out these GDSs. There are a bunch of GDSs in the world. There's not just one GDS company in the world. There are a bunch of GDS companies. So if you go to Google search and just search for GDS, right? let's see what happens. I am also doing this search for the first time. So you see, there are a lot of companies, right? So there is Amadeus, there is Sabre, there is Travelport, right? So there are a bunch of GDSs out there which basically act as a middleman between us and supply, right? So we are like a travel agent, right? We are just an online travel agent, not a offline travel agent, but ultimately we are also connecting to the GDS to basically get all the information that we need to get. At least in flights case, this is true.
So Anurag, these GDS or aggregators you are talking about, are they open source or like does MMT pay for it? Or like other companies pay for it?
No. So obviously MakeMyTrip has to pay for it. So if you go to, let's say, I'll talk about one of the largest sort of GDSs today. So if you look at it, this is Amadeus, right? Stock price of 62.34 euros. Revenue is 500, this is like 5.57 billion euros, right? So obviously these are for-profit companies. They will not give you APIs just for the sake of it, right? These are for-profit companies which have built very large businesses by basically doing the aggregation job and basically providing all the travel agents, be it online, offline, like APIs on which you can build your own products, right? So this is a for-profit organization, and everything is obviously charged to MakeMyTrip.
Okay, just one question. Have you ever I do not know anything about this, but there are web crawler services, right? Do they help or in any way? Because I do not know what is the amount of you're paying on a yearly basis or to Amadeus or any other GDS, but do using web crawler services?
Good point, Charan. See, the point is web crawlers what happens is when you write a web crawler, you are basically trying to crawl a website, right?
Yes.
That website can change the structure any day, right? Today, MakeMyTrip looks like this. So let's say MakeMyTrip today, let's say I'm trying to launch my own travel startup and I try crawling the fares from MakeMyTrip, right? And try to build my own website.
Correct.
What do I have to do? I have to basically go out there and basically first know each sector that is out there, right? So New York, New Delhi, New York, Bombay, New York, Chennai, right? Then I have to go crawl the MakeMyTrip website. The MakeMyTrip website itself can change anytime, right? Which means my crawler can break down anytime, right?
Understood.
So
You would always need to change.
So these ways are not sustainable. Like it's not easy to build. Like you can build a content-based product, but it's very hard to build like a booking-based product where the prices need to be real time, right? And not only you have to crawl it, you have to crawl it practically real time, right? So that is why building a travel booking kind of startup based on crawling is not possible. You can build a content-based product, right? So let's say I'm trying to build a TripAdvisor, right? That is possible, right? Because that content is static, it is not changing real time.
Got it.
So
I have a question.
Yeah.
So the MMT's competitors will also be using similar platforms, right?
Absolutely.
So how does MMT differentiate in terms of the number of flights that we're showing?
Awesome, great question. I'll address that, Monica. Wonderful question. I really loved it. So we'll address it at the end. I'll just quickly go through the rest of the slides and then I'll address some of these wonderful questions. Right. So I have just parked it. Don't worry. I'll take it. So yeah, so the way, so like you understood, like you basically can get information from Amadeus. I had a demo for Amadeus also, but I'll just skip it in the interest of time. But basically like the way you saw, right? You saw the MakeMyTrip URL, right? You saw the MakeMyTrip URL. So makemytrip.com/PWA region equals IN, which was returning data. Very similar to that. Amadeus also provides APIs, which is why I put a screenshot out here just to sort of see if we would have time, we would do it. Something similar you can do with Amadeus. So there are Amadeus URLs that return you data. So they actually return you airline information. They actually return you airline fare, all of it real time. So I actually have a quick demo. Maybe at the end of it, if there is time, I'll show it to you. But basically you can see that you can hit the Amadeus API and get back information, which will actually give you like the airline information or the airline fare. We'll see if I can show you at the end of it. So that is how it is happening. You are basically getting all the information from GDS, right? Now coming to again the next slide. you'll see, so again, right? So again, after search results page.
Excuse me, Anurag, can
Yeah.
I ask a question here?
Yeah.
So, these GDSs, so do they have data on all the operators that are operating in the world, or do they have data on just a limited set?
Correct. Awesome question, Lakshya. So here's a quick answer to that. So see, GDS is in the business of giving you the maximum supply, right? Otherwise, an agent will not integrate with you, right? But having said that, it's true that not all, like every GDS has their own strengths and weaknesses, which is why there are so many different companies in that space. So Travelport would have, Travelport would probably have, because it's slightly upstart GDS, it's a new GDS compared to Amadeus. So it will have slightly better, more aggressive pricing, and will probably have lesser operators on its platform because it's still a newer company compared to Amadeus. Amadeus is a far older company, so it will have a much larger spectrum of suppliers, but then it would have a far more aggressive pricing, right? It will charge you much more than probably a Travelport would. Now, what happens is, as an OTA or as a travel agent, as MakeMyTrip, you have to decide whether you want to go with Travelport or you want to go with Amadeus. And the way you take that call is basically understanding that the sectors that you are going to serve the most, right? Obviously, in our search space also, there is a 80-20, right? Like 80% of the users would be searching certain specific sectors, right? And if a certain GDS has supplies most of the airlines from those sectors, I think I might still go with Travelport, but even if it has less set of suppliers compared to Amadeus, right? So that is how a travel agent would think about it.
Yeah, got it.
Got it. Cool. So the next step is then after the listing page, right? So this we call as the search results page. So now you say view prices, right? So let's say I click on Air India. Oh, sorry. Am I sharing my screen? No, right? Oh, yes. Right. And then I continue. And I come to a page like this, right? So this obviously has a lot of fare information. And this you can, like I already explained, is coming from a GDS, right? In our case, we actually use Amadeus at MakeMyTrip, right? So this information is coming from Amadeus. Obviously, this part of the information is coming from Amadeus. But then you have a whole lot of other details also coming in, right? For example, something like important information, right? Which is basically the travel guidelines, right? Especially in the in today's scenario where there is COVID, right? So how do you think something like this comes in, right? Or even things like the promotional codes, right? Where do you think these things are coming from?
So promo codes will, like, you will have a marketing team who will like actively be in charge of, like, in a marketing team in a subsection who will be in charge of promo codes. I guess there will be a liaison to financial departments for that. So they would like coordinate to supply that, and again they would, I guess a simple way could be fetching a data from as simple thing as a Excel sheet in the form of a, if you configure the website to read like that, let's say a Django program. And apart from that, like Anurag, I don't think you set or any details right now, so your name and everything. So perhaps there was an existing cookie, so perhaps they will also be reading existing cookies and fetching the data and incorporating.
Perfect. So yeah, so great point. So let me just quickly change my search. The reason why information came in was because I was already logged in. But
okay, sorry, you are logged in. Sorry, okay.
But in any case, that's not really the main point. So I think you kind of covered it pretty nicely, Chirantan. I'll just sort of change it to domestic sector to make it a little more.
Can I add something to what Chirantan has mentioned?
Yeah, sure.
So I think promo codes would be based on if a visitor is new to the website or probably is an existing customer. So based on if you want to acquire or retain.
Correct.
So
Great point. Awesome. Yeah. So basically we do a lot of other things. So obviously the base information is coming from GDS, right? Because obviously the flight information, everything I don't have, it is something that has to come from GDS. But a lot of other things also that I show on my website, they come from my own internal systems. Like I'm the guardian for information of all those systems. For example, something like travel restrictions, like what are the advisories, state guidelines, there's no central system that aggregates that, right? There is no business to be made out of it. It's a temporary thing, right? So what we have done is we have built our own system, which basically powers some of these components, right? So every page on the website you see is basically an aggregate of multiple things. Some of the information is coming from GDS. Some of the information is coming from our homegrown systems. Even stuff like this, use code MT super, right? That the deal codes, everything is coming. Some of these things are coming from our homegrown systems, right? Which is what I was alluding to. And obviously, because this is a homegrown system, so both of you are correct, Karunya, right? So because these are homegrown systems, I can decide, right, what to show to whom based on how much I know about you, right? So to Karunya, I will show a different deal code. To Anurag, I will show a different deal code, right? To Chirantan, I will show a different deal code. To Monica, I will show a different deal code. So those are the kind of smartness and good things I can do because I know a lot about you based on your past behavior, based on your past search history, right? And that kind of briefly addresses a question that you asked, Monica, right? So supply is only one part of it, right? So even if we cannot differentiate ourselves on supply, we can build things that can add a lot of value to the user, right? And those things are not coming from GDS. Those things are based on how well we understand your user behavior and how do we feel we can best serve Monica's needs or Chirantan's needs or Karunya's needs or someone else's needs, right? So the fair calendar, for example, the fair calendar view is a custom view. That's something that only like we did, right? It is not information coming from GDS directly. We basically look at what is the typical search behavior, how far out the user searches, right? And then we basically index the lowest fares for each particular sector, each of the popular sectors, not every sector, each of the popular sectors. So for example, I'll show you. If you are seeing this widget, right? This is a simpler fair calendar widget because it's a very popular sector. New Delhi, Mumbai, you are seeing pretty much dates, fares for every date. But if it were something like New Delhi to, let's say, Chile, right, which is not a very popular sector, would see most of it is empty because we would not have indexed those fares because that's not a very typical search pattern on our platform, right? So those are the kind of smart things we do, that we build a fair calendar view and then we put smartness on top of it, that whatever sectors are being searched most often, will build views for those first, right? It makes sense to do those first, right? So that is how we kind of add value to you, right? So instead of like searching again and again, Feb 14, Feb 15, Feb 16, you have a bird's eye view of all the fares right out here, right? And that is exactly how different OTAs add value to their customers, right? So moving on.
So Anurag, besides this internal API calls, you must have built some internal APIs and app systems or dashboards for the marketing team, right?
Exactly. Which is the next slide, which is this. So this is why you need a MMT flight engine, right? Because see, your app or website can only talk to one engine. It cannot. Well, that's not the right way of building things. You typically talk to one engine, but that centralized engine is then talking to like 10 different engines. For example, I do like what we have a feature called cabs, right? So let's say you're booking a flight. I also try to pitch you a cab that, hey, let's say you are booking a Delhi-Bangalore flight from Bangalore to your hotel or Bangalore to your office, right? When you are going to arrive in Bangalore, you book a cab through us also, right? So when we are presenting the web page, right, what we are doing is we are getting information from GDS, but we are also getting information from our in-house cabs engine, which is telling me that, okay, for Bangalore sector, I have these vehicle options available, right? So you can book a sedan, you can book a hatchback, you can book a more premium sedan also. These are 5-6 different options for this particular flight time, right? So everything is getting aggregated at MT flight engine level, which is our common backend system for all our all our clients, or all the websites and all the apps that we have. Does this help?
Yes, Anurag. Anurag, also in one of your slides, it was written that, like, not just written, I've noticed it too, like for example, when you are viewing the calendar page, or when you are viewing the main page, and then when you go on to check the price of the flight, and once you go on to the landing page, the price changes. So why does companies don't fix that? Because many times the customers fall off, or
Correct.
we are not able to convert the customers just because of that. Why not build a more dynamic API which uses a cloud server or something of that kind, rather than cache, which like reloads it a little later? So why does company not do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So the reason why that happens is because you have too many options to present on your UI on the search results page, right? On search results page, you have 30 different airline options that you have to present. if you are to get real-time fare information for all of those 30 airlines, you will take a long time to like actually create that page and present it to the user, right? It will take a lot of time to basically get all the information real time for all the different 30 airlines, even though it is coming from GDS only. Sometimes what happens is, like the question Laksh said, right, that the GDS may not have all the different airlines, right? So you might be talking to, let's say, a SpiceJet system independently, right? So if you have to get all of that information real time, it will take a lot of time for that page to load. That itself is a big turnoff for the user. So what happens is, on the search results page, we kind of index the fares every whatever 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes. But on the details page, on the flight details page, because you now have only one airline, right? Because you have chosen an airline, now you have to fetch real-time information only for one airline. That is much faster. Hence, on the details page, the fare changes and fare updates. So that's again a conscious call that we have taken. And that's actually something that most of the OTAs actually do.
Yes, I get it. Like I see it in many platforms that
Yeah.
paid you guys.
Cool. So I'll move on. I think we have covered most of it. So largely, this is how the system works. The last slide basically just talks about multiple different steps. So initially you get flight options, which itself is coming from GDS, and then you basically create like a token order. It's not really an order. It's like a placeholder order, right? Which again goes to the flight engine, which basically creates a temporary order on the GDS. And when you actually complete the payment, when you actually do the payment flows from us to the GDS, and that is how, when the payment happens, the ticketing happens, right? So there is a placeholder order that is created, then the payment happens. When the payment and the placeholder order match, right, then that is when the airline actually issues the ticket, which through the GDS comes to us. Which is why sometimes you might see that the payment has happened but the ticket has not arrived, because those are two independent steps. The order creation, the dummy order creation step, for some time, and then eventually the ticketing only happens when the payment happens, obviously, which makes sense, right? So that is how the final flow, the end-to-end flow works. Is this clear?
So GDS is not only a data aggregator, but also provides booking services to us to platforms.
Absolutely. Because ultimately, see, you cannot physically connect with 200 different airlines, right? So you basically pass the information to GDS. GDS takes care of taking care of all the 200 different airlines. See, I'm in the business of online ticketing. I'm not in the business of connecting with airlines, right? So there are aggregators out there who basically get me the information, and obviously are also responsible both ways, right? Information coming from airlines to us, and then when customer makes a payment or customer tries to book an order, again gets routed through GDS, goes to the airline systems, matches the payment to the order creation, and then basically flows the ticket to us. So everything, like the most of the backend complexity is being handled by GDS in this case. This is the case in airline ticketing. This is not the case in hotel ticketing. But airline ticketing, I wanted to give you a sample example. So airline ticketing, this is how it works.
Got it.
Cool. And just to sort of give you that parallel from hotel ticketing, you can think of MakeMyTrip as the GDS for hotels. In case of hotel booking, we have created our own GDS, right? Because there is no GDS for domestic hotels, right? There's no company in the world which is trying to aggregate domestic hotels in India, right? So we built our own GDS system for hotels business, domestic hotels business, right? And that makes a lot of sense because we are an India-centric company, right? A different company would not probably aggregate domestic hotel supply in India, right? But in airlines case, because GDS is such a standard norm, has been there in the industry for such a long time, when MakeMyTrip started, the GDSs were already in place, which is why you would partner with the GDS and not try to do it all by your own, because that would take a lot more effort and a lot more capital investment than actually just going out there and partnering with the GDS. So domestic, yeah.
Yeah, so building on that, so let's say me as an Indian tries to go to, let's say, US, and I'm using MakeMyTrip to make hotel bookings there. I'm not sure if that's available or not. I'm just making an assumption. So
Yeah.
if a central GDS is not available anywhere in the world, so let's say a company like MakeMyTrip would be existing in the US market as well, that would have aggregated data for themselves. So then that company, that particular company becomes the GDS for you, and
yes, awesome, correct, बिल्कुल सही आपने पकड़ा लक्ष्य. So this is how it happens. So if I have to go to the US market, and obviously I have strengths in India, I have aggregated Indian domestic supply, but I cannot aggregate US supply. What I'll do is I'll partner with another company, a similar company in the US, right? Like, so, think of it like, so there's a very strong competitor we have called Booking.com. So Booking.com is very strong and famous in Europe, and they have aggregated a lot of hotel supply in Europe, right? So if I have to go launch hotels in Europe, all I have to do is basically talk to Booking.com, get their APIs. So while I am a competitor to Booking.com, I'm also a partner with Booking.com, because Booking.com has already put in that legwork and actually integrated all the hotels in Europe, right? So that is exactly how it works. So you are absolutely correct. Bang on. Cool. Awesome. So I think the tech part is over. I think we are already through 2 last sections, and I hope this was useful.